It's too
Welcome to
close.
another episode of the Bhandwagon Podcast. And today I'm carrying on the theme of international sort of podcast that I'm looking to showcase and look at key individuals really who I think deserve a platform on a wider network, or key characters for you to follow and gain interest, especially for who I do. And my guest today is, the best way to describe her is probably the South Asian Oprah Winfrey. And if you think of the weight that will carry, I think I'm not going to do it a disservice. So without further ado, welcome to Tarannum Thind. Welcome.
Oh my goodness, Ricky, that's high praise. It really is. Oh,
Now,
wow. Thank
well,
you. Thank you.
no problem. And I will, from the start, I will say, I will speak slow because I do understand, especially with my accent and the area that I'm from in Birmingham. We do have a certain way of speaking, and it could be a bit too fast. So if I'm asking you a question and it's too, and you don't understand, then just do the same. Is that all right?
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I just want to start off with and just say, how are you to start off with?
I'm doing fabulous. I'm doing great. My heart is full of gratitude. So much love pouring in. And I'm honored that you called me on your podcast. So thank you.
Yeah, I was really interested in your story as well. And when you're seeing the the characters and the people who are coming onto the individuals, should I say, that have come onto your podcast. So I'm gonna say it's Jar, because I know you're saying it's Chai with a T podcast. Can you just give us a little bit of a background on the podcast, and then I want to jump in a little bit deeper.
Sure. The podcast's called Chai with Tea. The reason it's called Chai with Tea is because Tarannum is really hard to pronounce for a lot of people. It's one of those names that's a tongue twister. Secondly, it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek because non-South Asian folks usually go to like Starbucks or Tim Hortons or coffee shops and ask for chai tea, which is, I mean, for us Punjabis, we're like, no, you're saying chai twice, or tea, right? Uh, and then, I mean, with the lingo and the slang sort of evolving, now tea has a different meaning. So spill the tea. So that works as well. I just wanted to have a safe space, Ricky. For me, it was really important to humanize my guests, whether it's artists, whether it's celebrities, whether it's people with different backgrounds. I really, it wasn't about scratching the surface. I really wanted to go deep and have deep conversations. And that was the whole intent. And I think so far, I feel like I have been able to achieve that. I do want to continue these conversations with people from various backgrounds. There's a lot of ideas constantly brewing in my head, but essentially that's what chai with tea is.
And I will touch on it, but I just want to kind of run towards the end on this little bit. What do you see as the deep advantage in terms of kind of spearheading that movement of long conversations where you're you've come from a media background where things are bite-sized, 3-minute segments, 7-minute segments, and then people are expected to tell their stories and move on. How do you think, your change of style from being like that to going to long format has helped you?
I think I was craving for it. I almost felt like if I was on radio, for example, which was my and television, my previous experiences, I always felt like there was things that I wasn't able to get out of the artist. They were, I mean, you have a time frame and you're trying to do conversations in a very short time frame, like you said. For radio, for example, when you're doing a live interview, it's great. You have a guest and you're having that conversation. But sometimes it would happen that as soon as you are about to get deeper into the moment that they're talking about, are referencing an anecdote, it was time for commercials. Then you have to sell cars, and then you have to sell the vegetables and
Double glazing. That was a big, in the
right.
UK, double glazing is a big thing.
So it was really, and I could feel that. There could have been more. And I kept craving for that. I've been really, really fortunate. For the last 2 decades, I've built incredible relationships and friendships with friends in the industry. And off the record, these conversations used to happen all the time because there was a comfort level. But those conversations, I wished they were recorded at times, of course, keeping their consent in mind. And I think I was ready, and so were they, because the trust was already there. So I feel like people are also ready, because during the pandemic, the long format interviews, the podcast revolution really, really did really well. People's attention span also, I feel like, has increased. And we keep saying that people just want to see the 30 seconds and the 1 minute, but I feel like if you give them quality content, they embrace it and they're listening.
And I always find when I've interviewing people that sometimes the best stuff is after the camera stop recording, and
Right?
and you are in a little bit of a privileged position, because they've obviously consented to giving you the interview, but the stuff after is the gold sometimes. And then you're persuading them to say, like, do you think people should hear? Oh, I think people should hear that. Is there ever been a point where you've had to make that decision where you had to say, so come on, I think you need to let that out?
I have. And sometimes I think what ends up happening with public figures is you are constantly asked similar questions in the media. So you get used to asking or used to giving similar answers. So you have these stories in your head that you constantly share. Celebrity X, Y, and Z. When you Google their interviews, you will find a pattern. And they're very, very similar in the way they share stories. Because they're so used to having similar questions pointed to them. And there's also a little bit of a fear of judgment. So anytime you have to share something new, you don't know how people are going to perceive it, how everybody's going to take it. So there's a bit of that as well. The cancel culture is huge right now. So there has been times where we've talked about something off the camera. We've discussed it, and if they are comfortable with it, most of the time they end up sharing it. 99% of the time, the conversations that you see on the podcast are organic. We haven't discussed what we're going to talk about. We haven't discussed what questions are going to be. It's a conversation. I don't even call them interviews. I call them conversations. So I'm grateful for that trust and faith that they show in me.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm so glad you said that, because I'm very similar in terms of having that organic sort of nature. I very rarely, only one interview that I've ever like researched massively, and there was a different style to it, because that was it was what it was. Okay, so as you were growing up, your parents were into kind of arts and theatre. What sort of influence did they have on you in terms of as a young Tarannum?
Huge influence. I am who I am because of my parents. And I was thinking about that yesterday, in fact, because I was with my grandparents yesterday, as to how the qualities of each one of them influence you as an individual. The discipline that I have in my life when it comes to my work comes from my grandparents and parents, both. There was this work ethic that they brought to the table, the dedication, the passion for the craft, constantly wanting to evolve and learn. That's because of my parents. My father was master's in theatre from Punjabi University, Patiala. So my childhood was all about growing up in the green rooms and watching them do these plays and rehearsals and traveling with them. With mom, she was a massive star in her college days in declamations and debates. And some of the people that she had debates with on provincial level are now huge politicians. So, speaking language, command on the language, making sure no matter what language you speak, you do full justice to it, the nuances. I get called out all the time if I mispronounce something to date. So that, I think a lot of it, a huge influence of the family.
I want to when I was kind of reading on yourself and just listening to stuff, I want to just go on to your mum for a second, because
Sure.
there was something that kind of resonated with me within there, because my granddad especially was very ill for quite a large part of my life, to be honest. And the amount of toll it takes on a family, and quite rightly, in terms of like doing them a service. But your mom at the age of 8, when you were 8, was paralyzed and had health issues on there. How did you balance that out, where you've got such a creative side in terms of imagination stuff, and then you've got the, as a daughter duty and a family duty to take care? How did you get that balance?
I think my creativity saved me. It really did. I think as an 8-year-old, I could have been really, really lost. And I was lost. I really didn't know. Our entire life changed overnight. I had young parents who were extremely active and passionate and doing so many things. And we were starting out a new life in Chandigarh in 87, this is. And just when they thought that there is a new beginning, they have young children, the stroke happened. So everything was upside down. And I feel like I didn't know any better. I come from a family of really compassionate people. So when my brother was sent away, I was the only child left at home with mom and dad. When dad was taking care of mom, I took on that very, very organically. It was almost like, well, now one of us is not doing well, so we have to take care of her. Mind you, if there was a lot of confusion and there was a lot of denial, I remember going through a period where, because physically, a daughter, especially a girl, really looks up to the mother, really looks up to the fashion style and the things she's wearing and the shoes she has. And, and you're pretty much, when she's at work, I used to like look at her lipsticks and her makeup and all that stuff. And all of a sudden, she's not the same person. I don't even recognize her physically. That was really difficult. But all I remember, to be honest, is taking her hand and making her walk, teach her how to walk again, dad and I. My memory of that period is dad standing behind me and teaching me how to roll the rotiyan. Mm-hmm. What saved me in terms of creativity was my imagination. One of my best friends used to come over, because I wasn't able to go out a lot because of the responsibilities. I had a phenomenal childhood surrounded by the most amazing friends. And one of my friends would come over and I would have a tape recorder and I would pretend that I'm interviewing her. And she would be the celebrity. And then we would reverse the roles and I would pretend to be the celebrity. Just constantly in my head playing roles, imagining myself being on television, taking the newspaper with mom and dad and pretending to read the news and trying to get their attention. And then dad was really passionate about theater. So he had a theater group for children called Tarannum Arts. And we used to, in summertime, get together, all the kids in the neighborhood, and rehearse a play. And then we used to perform. I think it really gave me the confidence, because I went through bullying in school and I went through a lot of challenges. I didn't have any confidence in myself because of whatever was going on at home, because I knew the circumstances are different at home than my other friends whose moms were doing all these amazing things and my mom was bedridden. Theater gave me confidence. Performing arts gave me an incredible boost to my self-esteem, to my self-confidence. It taught me how to express myself. It taught me how to communicate. It taught me how incredible it can be when you're on stage and when people are listening to you. And I was doing the same in school as well. I wasn't great at studies, but when it came to performing and being on stage, my teachers knew that this is where she belongs.
But I mean, thank you for sharing that in real detail, because sometimes when you kind of reflect back, your emotions, and sometimes the words are not there that are appropriate, that in terms of like feeling. Did you feel a sense of, because you then became, a real crucial cog within the family function of making things happen? Did you feel a little bit of an injustice or a loss when you're looking at your friends in terms of what they're doing, and your childhood has automatically just happened? There's been a massive change. Do you still feel that bit of loss or that bit of injustice that you missed a little bit on your childhood?
I do. I do. Especially after I became a mother, I think I felt it even more. Um, I did feel that. I feel like I grew up really, really fast. I feel like the way I looked at life was very different than the kids my age. The way I had the empathy and compassion was very different. That innocence, that sort of um, being the strong one, being the grown-up one all of a sudden, because dad's alone. He's doing everything on his own. So being that support system. So yes, definitely grew up really fast. And I also really wanted to give my children that opportunity to be kids. Just be kids, sleep in if you want to, be childish if you want to. These are the things we never got to do. But for some reason, both of them turned out to be really old souls, and they're so grown up, sometimes even more grown up than I am. But I feel like the reason I have the curiosity and the zest for life now, and the gratitude that I have, is because of that phase in my life and that chapter in my life. Because I know how unpredictable life is. I know how things can change overnight. I never take anything for granted. And I get to experience my childhood in a way with my kids and my nieces and nephews now. So yeah, that makes up for it for sure.
Yeah, no, and I can kind of relate to kind of a little bit what you were saying. Especially when you got kids. I had a very weird experience with one of my children around. We were playing pillow fights, and I just said to him, "Oh, come on, let's have a pillow fight," and they didn't know what it was, because they're so used to looking at screens and looking at conversation. Some of the basic games of playing with the balloon keeping it up in the air the longest possible. They move out, and then when you hear those conversations, it makes you reflect back of when you were that age, and you think, do you think that sometimes when you look back and you can feel sad, but they don't know any better. Do you get what I mean? Who do you think's in a better position, us or them?
I mean, I feel like there is both. I have reflected upon this thought. I love the fact that they are able to have more opportunities than what we had. But I also feel like the struggles really taught us a lot early on. There was a sense of independence. Growing up in India, we didn't have a choice but to become street smart, which I never became, by the way. I till today, I trust blindly. But those things that can't be taught, but they come to you because of the circumstances around you. I feel like the children are very sheltered, extremely sheltered. They're not experiencing life at a grassroots level. I don't know how else to say it. Those experiences are priceless, what we went through, whether they were the ups and the downs and every little thing. There was a joy in non-materialistic things, which I find is kind of missing now, because I feel like because we are privileged enough to give them what they want, everything is surrounded by materialistic stuff. So that was never there. I don't remember ever having dolls or toys or any of that. So I've given the children an opportunity to sort of explore and have some free time, because I had a lot of that. During summer holidays, mom was sick, dad was working, I was home. So there wasn't really much to do sometimes. So it was all imagination and creativity and creating things and writing things and pretending to be somebody I'm not. And I've given that and consciously given that chance to my children to create. My son, in fact, during these summer holidays has put together a short film.
Wow.
And he shot it, he wrote it, he edited it. He's 12. And that comes from being free and not being forced to go to soccer, baseball, swimming. You have to be in 10 activities. So I think I've made my husband and I have made that conscious decision to let them be. It's okay to sleep in. It's okay to go to bed late. It's okay not to have a schedule for these 2 months. Just be yourself. Do what you want to do. What is it that you want to do? So I think treating them like individuals and not just controlling them has something that I've learned over the years. I mean, it's trial and error. There's no right and
Oh
wrong, but
yeah.
this works for us.
No, it's never and then when you're looking at content, especially content creators and the YouTube kids, and looking at some of the influencers, you can see that in the right area your son's looking in is it's a lot better than some of the other things that professions that they could go into. What can you just share your journey in terms of where you got up to the point of being a young lady, 17, 18, making that move towards Canada? How did that process go on?
It was a difficult process. It wasn't a decision that was made by me. It was a decision that was made by my extended family, my Nana Nani ji, my Masi ji, my Mama ji, and my mom and dad. I was dead against it. I was one of those kids who wanted to die in Chandigarh. Chandigarh is where my heart beats. I grew up there. Yesterday I was in an Uber and somebody made a comment about Chandigarh, and like, it's not the same as it used to be. And I was like, no. You don't
know what you're talking about. Yeah.
you don't know. You just don't say that about my city. So I was one of those kids. I was like, no, I'm gonna do journalism here, and this is where I'm gonna be, and this is where I'm like, I'd never envisioned my future in Canada ever. But I think it was one of those things that mom and dad decided that was the best for me. I didn't have much say at the age of 17. I think mom and dad were really, really trying to protect me more than anything else. I think dad always knew that I had a passion for media. And back of his mind, he always knew that I will not be able to survive knowing my personality with the same dignity and integrity in the business side of things as a female, and how challenging that could be. So I think now I look back and all of those things make sense, why they took the decision. It took me about 3 years. I was fortunate. I had the family support. I was living with my grandparents. They tried to get me through different things and suggested all these different colleges and universities and do this and do that. And I think deep inside, I was never able to vocalize it as to what I want to do. That media is where my heart is. Just because you're fearful, it's South Asian family, you don't know how they're going to take it, right? So I never expressed it, but secretly in my grandparents' house, I was taking a camcorder and recording my intros all the time and pretending to be on TV. So clearly I was going to fail at everything else that I attempted, which I did. So
No, I mean, it's fascinating in terms of like, the decision making, especially of the older generation, how brave they were in taking these decisions. Even though they're fearful and they might regret it, and then bestowing that on their children as well at the same time. That quality, or you could call it a quality, is obviously kind of missing now. But you've got that unique experience. I recently came from Toronto a few weeks back, a couple of weeks back, and I was just sitting there, just taking in the amount of students and thinking about those brave decisions in terms of how they've gone over there, how they're living over here and that side. Is there a part of you every time you see somebody like that just goes back to that bit, and you can empathize a little bit about it, because you do concentrate on a lot of social issues as well, that you're a champion for empowering women, etc. How do you kind of deal with that then?
Every time I see a student on the bus, on the SkyTrain, anytime I bump into them at stores, there is a sense of empathy, and it takes a lot. It takes a lot to leave the comfort of your home and move to a different country and start a new life. Most of them don't have family support here, and they are doing their best. They're working hard. They're being discriminated against. They are trying to be as brave as they can be. It does take me back, absolutely does. And I feel like recently, a few months ago, I got a chance to travel to the interior. And I went to different colleges and met up with a lot of international students, and there is just obviously you lean towards just you want to find your own, right? So because I want to hear their stories and what is it that they're struggling with and how I can help. And it was just the most incredible experience. These kids are absolutely passionate about having a better future in this country. They've come with so many dreams and they want to do so many things. But there's a little bit of a divide. And I rightfully so. I've been in the country for 25 years now, so I get both sides of the story. I get it. I play devil's advocate all the time. So I get where this side is coming from and where the students are coming from. But I really wish that there was an opportunity to sort of bridge that gap. And I wish there was more conversation and dialogue happening. I think it is, slowly but surely. I really want to bring that out on the podcast more moving forward as well. I have brought it up in my sort of little ways. It's weird that, and I thought about it, there is a pattern in my guests as well. A lot of my guests have actually come to this country as international students, and I didn't realize that. But when I started sort of making the list, there was that common element between all of them. So yeah, it's something that I'm really passionate about. Definitely. I feel like we just all need to listen. That's all we need to do.
What are the similarities and what's different from when you look at your scenario compared to what the scenario looks like now in Canada?
One of the biggest ones I feel is there weren't too many like myself when I came. And there were very few students that were coming from overseas. The opportunities were not there. Most of them were coming because they had families here. Another thing that was there was it was a big deal for me to blend in. I wanted to embrace the new culture. I wanted to just learn and absorb and pick up the accent, pick up the language, pick up the nuances, the pleases, the thank yous. So I think first year and a half was just observation. I didn't have the courage I could speak English fluently, but I didn't have the courage to have a conversation because I didn't really have context. I started working pretty much as I landed in December. And I think by the December 7th is when I landed in 97, and I started working, I think 3 weeks later. Wow. So I didn't have the courage to express myself in the way they were speaking because it was new to me. We didn't have social media back then, so I really didn't have much context of Canada. Whatever I'd heard of Canada was through my aunts and uncles and what they had told us. So I think there was this eagerness to absorb and to fit in and to make an effort there was this realization that we are in this country. This country has opened the doors to us. So it's our responsibility as individuals to make an effort to learn their language, their culture, their respect, their living. And that I feel like is a little bit of maybe it's a rebellious nature, maybe it's age, maybe it's a comfort that there is many of us that can protect each other. You're not alone anymore. I don't know what it is, but I feel like that's missing. I feel like there is a comfort in the language. Punjabi is written everywhere. Punjabi is spoken everywhere. So you're really not going that extra mile to learn the language or make that extra effort to be part of the culture.
Integrated.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that. I did feel that. I don't feel that in Vancouver. Yeah, I felt Vancouver was a little bit more like Birmingham. I like that. Yeah, but when I was in Toronto, there was one thing that happened. So I was just first it's really flat, so you could just see everyone everywhere, right? So then when I could see like kind of groups of people and stuff, and then I went to Tim Hortons and I ordered, and I have my usual French vanilla. And I literally said my order, and I put in a food order, and I turned around to my friends, and then within about 30 seconds, they've given me my delivery of the food and the drink. And I was like, what? It's ready that quick? And there were just a group of Punjabis working in the background, you know, just working hard. You could see.
Yeah.
And she turned around, she goes, oh, that's what we do here, sir, at Tim Hortons. And I was like, the amount of people that I ask here, are they proud of where they work or actually care of their employers? Very small. But she had a sense of pride and the loyalty to that brand and organization. That was the biggest thing that meant to her. And it hit me there. I thought, that's what Punjabis do, isn't it? That's the pride in their work in terms of doing it from there. And then I left. Then as I was leaving, I was thinking, I was like, I wonder how long that's got left in her. From that whether how long will that carry on? Where will it be resentment? Right. Will it be the racism? Will it be that discrimination? Will it be I don't need to learn anything else? I can just hang around with other Punjabis and just stay isolated within there. But I just thought that really different, especially between the UK and the Canada.
I'm blown away by the amount of work these kids are putting in. Like every single time I've had conversations with the international students especially, has really left me feeling I wish I could do more. Wish I could do more, because there is a lack of guidance. So most of them just land up and there is no sort of direction that's given to them. They're sort of figuring everything out on their own. The support it only comes down to how much money can we make off of them. And there is a lot of harassment happening in places as well. Females are going through a lot of challenges once you start talking to them. But I think you're absolutely right. I wish we realized what you realized. I wish we realized that our entire service sector is running because of them at this point. Otherwise, in restaurants, they're working so hard. In service industry, they're working so hard. And I really wish we did more. I wish we did more for them.
Do you think the big influencers, the social media, the singers, the movie stars, and whoever, especially the contacts that you have? This is a bit of a loaded question, so I'll apologize for it. Do you think they do enough?
I think when it comes to doing enough, what does that even mean, right? I almost feel like it's so subjective. Some of them might say, well, we are writing songs for them. We are representing them. Our stories are very similar to theirs. So we are being their role models. We are sort of entertaining them. I remember seeing a performance of Nirvair Pannu recently in Brampton Mela. And he pulled out his phone and he had this poetry that was so empowering to the international students that he recited. As an artist, when it comes to doing more, it's so subjective. It's a lot of them are doing philanthropy at their own end for different causes. A lot of them are vocal when nobody has the courage to be vocal, and they're saying the things they can say and empowering them. So I feel like art and creativity can be really empowering. In my case, it really was. So what's being written, what's being presented, what's being given to them sometimes can be extremely uplifting, and it can empower. Like words have huge power. And if that was taken care of, if the artists were doing that for me, I want to say thank you. Thank you for doing that. But yeah, it's a tough one. It really is a tough one.
Yeah, no, I mean, so like you went on a waiting list to study journalism, and
yes.
What was your first big break then?
Oh my gosh, Music Waves. Yeah, I can never forget that. So I did apply to BCIT for broadcasting program, because that was the biggest broadcasting program at that time. And I was working part-time. I was going to college, taking some random computer courses at this point. And then I see Amrik Chima. He used to host a show called, him and Jyoti used to host a show called Satrang on Shaw back in the day. And I'm at my grandparents', and Amrik announces that we're looking for a host who can speak Hindi and Punjabi fluently, and we're launching a new show. And I was like, oh my God, maybe I should have given it a try. I need to give this a try. So I kept calling the number and nobody would pick up. And it used to be landline. I remember feeling so helpless. I only had that one phone number that I had jotted down. And I tried for days and nobody would pick up. And then later on, I found out the reason they weren't picking up is because they were busy shooting a Gurdas Mann video. Because it was literally 3 or 4 of them running the entire music waves alongside Kulwinder. So I didn't give up. Finally, somebody picked up the phone and called me for an audition. I went for my audition. I was selected right away. And I still look back and I can't believe that Bijoy and Kulwinder Singera had so much faith in this newcomer who had never faced the camera before, who's 23 years old, who's pretty clueless about what she's doing, because I had no formal training at all. But they just had faith. They had faith. They brought me on board. It was for a channel called Channel M, and that was being launched. It was a multicultural channel. And the show was called Jawani. And the entire purpose of Jawani was to make Punjabi cool amongst the youth who was feeling disconnected. The kind of content that was being aired on community channels was more for the older generation who were hooked on Saturday, Sundays when all these Punjabi programs were airing. But Music Waves was producing a lot of content for the youngsters. So they were in terms of music. So they had Jazzys and Shindas and Malkeet and Amrinder and all these artists. And they needed to make sure that the music is reaching the audience. So, and here's a girl from Chandigarh who's clueless about Punjabi music. My only knowledge of Punjabi music at that point was Malkeet and Maan Uncle, because Maan Uncle was Dad's friend. Malkeet because his music had played at my Mama Ji's wedding. Kututak tutak tutiyan.
Yeah.
I grew up listening to Jagjit Singh and ghazals, and because that's what Mom listened to. Mahesh Bhatt movies and Yash Chopra movies were the only movies we were allowed to see in the theater because there was something about them that attracted my parents, and they would take us to watch these. So I didn't really have knowledge of Punjabi music, but I just faked it till I made it. I really did. I knew that this opportunity is a lifetime opportunity and it can really change my life. I gave it all, Ricky. I gave it all I had. I had never done anything like this before, but I'm one of those people who I'm a perfectionist. So with the support of the team, for a newcomer, a female, being the only female in the team, by the way, which working in the media can be so nerve-wracking for a lot of females. But if I didn't have the respect and the dignity and integrity that I was able to gain in that little time, I don't think I would have survived. If that first experience wasn't as incredibly motivating and uplifting, I don't think I would have survived. And every time I meet Bijoy and Kulwinder, that's one thing I say: thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I recently met Kulwinder. He's fascinating. And I have coaxed him to come in on air as well. So that'll be.
Oh, good luck with that.
Yeah. I think he just said just to get rid of me at that bit. So, was there a moment that this is probably a test of your memory, to be honest? Was there a moment when you look back and then you thought, you've achieved what you set out to do? Or at that no,
not till today. I feel like there is so much I want to do.
That's brilliant.
No, I've sat across some of the biggest names in the industry over the years, and I have had many pinch me moments. But have I achieved it? No, there is so much more I want to do. I always feel like there is more. I'm so critical of my work. I don't watch most of my work. I don't listen to it. I feel like I have blinders on. I don't listen to other podcasts. I don't listen to local stuff that's put out there. And the only reason being that I don't want to get influenced. So I don't want to adapt anybody's style. I want to be authentic and I want to be myself. And I don't want anybody's influence to sort of seep into my style at all. But I always feel like I have so much more to do. I feel like a newcomer with Chai with Tea. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I just when I I listened to one. I listened to Audley's one again,
Oh,
and
did you? Yeah,
and
thank you.
I think one of the things that came across was every time I have seen him do an interview, there's always this guard up. But I saw it come down when it was with you, and that the atmosphere in terms of from the conversation, and he looked so full of energy in terms of how he was, how he was answering his questions, and you were pushing him. You were pushing it, to dig some more stuff out. And, he was giving it. I think that comes through in terms of trust and in terms of a style of delivery. How did you come up with that particular style?
I didn't even realize I had a style. I think it is who I am as a person. I come from a place of empathy and compassion, not judgment. That is my number one thing from day one. I'll give you an example. It's not on the internet, so not too many people have seen it, but people still talk about it, the ones who watched it on TV. This is, I think, about 10, 11 years ago. I received a call that I have to interview an artist named Diljit Dosanjh. Didn't know much about him, researched him as much as I could, which I always do, even if I don't know the artist. I really wasn't expecting much. I knew that he had done Luck 28 and he had done Jet and Juliet, and clearly he was rising. And I took my camera. At that time I was with Omni, met this individual who was just so sharp in a beautiful looking suit, and he walks in and he doesn't make eye contact, and he just does this to me, waits for me to sit, pushes my chair in, goes around and sits on his chair. And at this point, there is zero judgment, because that's the place that I come from. All I want to do, this is the first time I've met this person, all I want to do is get to know you. That's always the intention. Tell me about the human. I do see the person that's constantly entertaining the audience, but who's the person behind that facade? That's the one that I want to get to know. First time ever. We reached a point in the interview that was extremely emotional, and he broke down. And he broke down where he couldn't stop his tears. I couldn't stop my tears. We had to stop the cameras, and my cameraman was so confused. He was a freelancer, and he was just like, okay, what's going on here? We waited. He collected himself, and then we restarted the interview, and it happened again. There was, I don't know what was in the air. I don't know how to be specific. I've had many of those moments in my interviews. All I can think of, or all I can if I do analyze my work, all I can say is maybe you just get tired of being in the position of, how should I say this? With South Asian media in specific, I find that a lot. It's almost like I'm waiting for you to be pushed under the bus. And I will take every opportunity to do so I can get you to say something controversial. I make myself feel like I'm on a pedestal. But I can make you uncomfortable and embarrassed. And I think when you do so much of that, and all of a sudden you're given an opportunity where that's not my intent, and I make it very clear, is all I want to do is have a heart-to-heart conversation. Forget about the camera. I'm not interested in that. I think you bring your guard down. You just automatically do. I feel like nobody listens in today's day and age anyway. So if you have somebody who's actually willing to listen, who says, please, like, tell me, I want to know more. You want to share. We all of us have so much to say, but we just don't have enough people to listen to us. So maybe that's what it is.
Do you think, and that's actually exactly what came across when I looked at it, where it's not clickbaity, it's not fake. I think sometimes where you see these individuals and they've have this persona from what they see in front of a camera, then behind of it, and sometimes it slips and it kind of crosses over. But you've got to create the environment to say it's okay, it's safe to do it here. But even though you know that it's going to be seen everywhere else, but I think you have as an interviewer, you have a responsibility to try and put it out for the best of themselves rather than to have that exploitation at the same time. And especially in the Sonali interview, I could see a lot of things between yourself and then some of the similarities coming out from there. How hard is it for you then? You went to try and have a journalism, the qualification and going down that road.
Yeah.
To kind of bring this new era, this new wave, especially with your podcast being at the forefront, a level of new professionalism coming in, because that's what it is. I think doing long format really gets rid of the poor journalist that's in there. Do you feel the same as me?
I'm unlearning a lot of things. I really am, and I didn't realize it. I think coming from a journalistic background and coming from television especially, I'm so used to perfection.
Well, we worked a microphone.
We do have a microphone. I am so, and that's something that I'm, even with my social media team, I'm constantly discussing and I'm learning, and because for me it was like, okay, the moment I have hair and makeup on, I'm in character. So I'm myself, right? So the first few podcasts, it's interesting. Last year I taped, it was just because I kept hearing about this. Podcast needs to be casual, and podcast needs to be laid back, and podcast needs to be, and I was like, okay, all right, let's see. Maybe I can do the whole jeans and sweatshirt thing, and maybe I can show up and see. I sucked at it. I don't think I'll ever air those episodes because I wasn't myself, and I wasn't able to. And the moment, and then I had to realize that I don't need to be somebody else. I need to be myself. This is what people have grown up with. They have seen me in this character or role. I wouldn't even call it a character, because this is who I am. They've seen me like this. It's just an extension of who I am, but it's definitely a different medium. I personally enjoy long format interviews much more than surface level conversations. And I think that's just who I am as an individual too. You ask me to do a small talk and I will run the other way because I can't do small talks. But if you want to talk about life and philosophies and, like the world, I am all for it. So this is perfect for me at this point in my life.
Could you what made you go into the podcast? Because you've got a history of production of programs and that as well. What made you to go in there? Did you see is that this is the next thing that's going to happen? I've got to jump on the bandwagon. Forget the pun. Was that the thing?
No, not at all. I was tired of being belittled in the South Asian media scene as a female. I was tired of not having enough opportunity in the South Asian media scene locally here. I was exhausted. Not having the same opportunity as the men have, not being able to, and having to prove yourself over and over and over again while you see your counterparts, the male South Asian broadcasters, just rising and shining. But the moment a female has an opinion or wants to express something, that's not accepted. I think I was tired. And also I was really comfortable as well. You in hindsight, you look at all those things and you realize why you're feeling the way you're feeling. It took a toll on my mental health. It took a toll on my confidence level. It took a toll. And then I had to sit down and reflect, take a year off, and sort of say, okay, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? Because this is not who I am. I am feeling the way I'm feeling because I'm letting the outside noises and the sounds affect me all of a sudden. And what I've done throughout my career, I had to learn and relearn how to block those noises and block that noise and say, no, I'm better than this. I'm not going to let other people tell me who I am and make me what I'm not. And there's a sort of a blueprint for South Asian radio in Vancouver, especially in radio. So there's a blueprint. So you do the talk shows and you talk about the traditional stuff because, there's a pattern. And when you have evolved as a person, you've evolved as an individual, you realize that these are not the conversations that are fulfilling anymore to me. These are the conversations I had in the beginning of my career. These are the conversations that I'm grown up. I've had experiences. I've gained wisdom. Why is that not encouraged to reflect in my work? Why are my hands being tied? Why cannot I be creative? Why can't I have control over my own content? Because my audience has faith in me. Somewhere the faith for me also got lost. I started losing faith in myself. So it was that. It was taking back my power, taking back the control. And also, I don't know, Ricky, I have always sort of shied away from being in the light. Like I have always been that person who dims my light to make the other person feel comfortable. I've always done that. And I realized that I need to stop doing that. I need to stop doing that. I'm a bit of a pushover. So there's there was a lot of self-reflection that came in the.
You were by far one of the best, easiest people that I've ever had a conversation with to book this on. It was, and you know what it was? I think you appreciated this. I'm talking for you on here. That you appreciated the struggles in just sorting this out. It could be it's such a nightmare in that way. Do you get a sense of satisfaction that when you see some of the figures and the feedback that you get from some of the biggest interviews that you've done, and you see what's happening in South Asia and other media, that you've made the right choice every single time?
I don't look at what everybody's doing. I think
I'll tell you are. I think you've made the right decision.
Thank you. Again, I come back to what I was saying earlier, having the blinders on and just focusing on yourself, and how you can get better and evolve and learn and grow has been my focus from day one. There's been times where I've had no idea that the person that I'm meeting is actually a huge radio personality, or obviously the big ones, but there are times, there's like, it changes and new people come and there's a lot of great work being done around you. But I can't. If I put my energy into what everybody else is doing, and the people that I worked with or the people that are doing what they're doing, I could not focus on myself. I get distracted very easily. I already have a hard time focusing. So I take all that energy and I'm like, no, okay, well, Karan's interview is doing really well, great feedback. Next one, what are we going to do next? That's my focus. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, I'm coming towards my 100th episode, and
wow,
and I'm really tired.
How often are you doing the episodes?
So I'll give you a little bit of background on this.
Yeah,
so this was
please.
during COVID. I listened to a lot of podcasts, and I learn a lot from them. I only go to a certain few, and I got into this. I had surgery, and
Okay.
I just felt I needed to change some of the stuff and a bit of outlook, because I had my kids. I wanted to kind of share some of the legacy in terms of, like, my ideas of this and blah blah blah, and so I just make a bit of a digital record. But I also wanted to just interview some people that I've always wondered, asking them certain questions. So the idea was to get to Jazzy B. That's my hero. So I said,
I have to tell you a story about Jazzy.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, that's
continue.
fine. Yeah, keep that. I always have a section on Jazzy in every episode. So I just kind of had a lot of connections in music, and managed to ask some of those questions, and it just built momentum. So it's
Amazing.
nothing. It was just purely a selfish project, and I've had people on the way just said, like, "Oh, can we come on?" But I'm very selective, because I need to know about them in terms of mapping these things out. I've got to have an interest. Because you can tell where somebody's already been put in a position, and you think, oh, this is what, this is where you got to go. But I just got to a point where I was thinking, I want to ask and Hey this question or this
Right.
politician that,
Yeah.
and then quickly kind of worked in a space where there's not that many of me in this arena. And then so when I saw someone like yourself already there and where we were at, it was amazing. So to get to that point was, it's unique. I don't have a team. It's just literally me just doing all this, but I try and do it every week, to be honest.
Amazing. That's a lot.
But recently, it's become every couple of weeks. But now I'm
Yeah.
focusing in on doing that, but also trying to sort out a little studio to have it more in person as well at the same time.
Amazing.
But
Amazing.
I don't know. I've got no set overall idea. I'm just going with the flow. So wherever it takes me, it'll take me. There's no agenda on it in terms of where it will go.
That's the best. I have no agenda. I think again, for me also, it was selfish, is I want to have these conversations. And I want to dig deep and I want to know more. I think that's where it came from for me as well. And it's amazing, isn't it? That you don't even realize that the conversation you're having can impact somebody and resonate with somebody in such a deep level. And I'm discovering as I go along, but it's a really cool feeling. I think for the first time in my career, Ricky, for the first time in my 20-year career, I'm realizing what it feels like to own your own product, to take your power back, to create your own brand. I was always the face of the station, that station. Any channel or station I associated myself with, I ended up becoming their face. And that was great. I was really good at promoting them. And now I'm having to promote myself, and I'm having such an interesting sort of realization that actually I don't like attention. I don't.
This ain't gonna help.
It was, like it's easier to sort of talk about, oh my gosh, I work at so and so station, and this is the channel, and this is what I do, and now having to do that for myself, and a lot of people suggested it should be called Tarannum Thind show, and I was like, oh no, that ain't happening. I'm still not there.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not that person. I don't think it'll happen anytime soon.
So a couple of bits really, because I know you've got such a busy day as well. I don't really want to take too much of your time, and it is international, so different time zones for you. I'm trying to be polite there. Was there ever a guest in terms of where you were scared of getting overwhelmed by, that you were nearly intimidated by?
I always get intimidated by Babuman and Gurdasman.
That's fair. It's in the surname.
That too, right? I always get nervous. It's interesting how these two individuals have just so much depth and so much knowledge and so much to share that I always feel like I hope I live up to that. And I've done several interviews with the both of them, but I always feel like, oh, I get those butterflies in the stomach every time I have to interview them. But which is ironic because I look forward to deep in conversation. I flourish in that. But these two always sort of make me, pull my socks up and say, okay, all right, we're going to do this. But yeah, they haven't been on Chai with Tea yet. So I'm looking forward to that.
Hopefully, I might have to come on before then. I'm only joking.
Yay!
I was going to say to you, so you were talking about Jazzy earlier, so I need to just make sure I get that story in before, just in case.
Oh my gosh, Jazzy. So I'm at Music Waves. This is in the beginning of my career. I had just started working there. It was lunchtime, and Kulinder's office, my office, studio, that's how it used to be when you entered. And you could hear the door open when it opened. Because it was lunchtime, everybody was away. I was just sitting in my office getting ready for my show. And this guy walks in with like a gray hoodie and gray pants. And I'm not even looking up. At this point, I looked up and then I was so focused in my zone trying to write my script for the show that I had to tape later on. And he goes, hey, is Kala there? And I said, excuse me? And he goes, is Kala there? And I said, And he realized that I have no idea what he's talking about. So he's like, is Kulwinder there? And I was like, oh no, Kulwinder stepped out for lunch. Can I take a message? And he's like, can you tell him Jazzy was here? And I said, sorry. And he goes, can you tell him Jazzy was here? I said, okay, sure. And he left.
Oh dear.
Jazzy is one of my closest friends in the industry. He's one person I can call anytime and I know he'll be there. And same goes for me. I never thought I would be friends with Jazzy B. We still laugh about that story. I honestly had no idea who he was. Kulwinder comes back and Kulwinder's like, any messages or anything? And I was like, yeah, Jazzy came. And he's like, Jazzy, why didn't you call me? And I was like,
But don't you feel? But don't you feel that's the innocence, isn't it? That's just everything where you're being genuine. It's just
so
mad.
I really think that I was able to, especially in the initial parts of my career, be able to do what I was doing is because I wasn't intimidated. I wasn't intimidated because half the time I had no idea who I was talking to. I wasn't really familiar with their body of work and the impact these artists have had in the Punjabi music scene. Now I look back and I'm like, some of the legends, I sat across them and I had conversations like an innocent child, talking about their journey. But maybe that's what helped because I really wasn't jaded by their success at all. My cameraman at that time, Aziz, was from Bangladesh. So he spoke Bengali. Bijoy was from the South. He had no idea who these people were. I had no idea who these people were. Aziz had no idea who these people were. The only people who knew was Kulwinder and his brothers. So when these people walked in, they would do what they had to do. But we were like, all right, let's do this. Hanji thoda na kiya.
It was a good start, that. So
but now you ask me about any singer. I mean,
yeah.
That's a bit of an overstatement, but I'm getting better.
Yeah, but now they'll come to you now. I've already had one. I told you I had one already for you anyway.
I had to Google him, by the way.
Yes, we'll move swiftly on. Okay, so last couple of questions for you. What does the next 6 to 12 months look like for you?
I think I'm giving everything I have to try with tea at this point. I really am. I'm immersing myself in the experience. I want to do different seasons in different parts of the world. So I want to, next year, I'm manifesting this. I want to take chai with tea to India. And I want to, the people that we don't have access to here, I can have these conversations there. I want to come to the UK. That's always been a dream, as well, because there's some incredible legends in the UK that I want to talk to. Australia is another place that I want to go to. So all of these things, one of the things I really wanted to do was to do Chai with Tea live podcast, which we were able to do last month, which was just an incredible experience. I want to do more of that, have live audience present while we're recording the podcast. So that it's my baby, and I'm just watching it grow and shine and learn from this entire experience. Yeah,
that's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, like it's fantastic, and leading the way to make trailblazing, really making those spaces for those people who are coming in after you, making it easy. I think conversations and communications is like the biggest thing. I think what really gets on our nerves at the moment is when you see some of the artists where they say, "Oh, I'm not doing any media," and you're like, "You what?" It's like, mate, nobody knows who you are. The best thing you could do is to do it. Nobody's got told off for doing too many interviews.
I have a reasoning for that. I really think, and I've looked at it really carefully, and I always play devil's advocate when it comes to artists.
Yeah,
I feel like I get them. I go back to the same point of the interviewers putting these people on spot and trying to get things out of them that they're not comfortable with. Media training is another thing that's never been done. Some of these kids didn't even know they were going to be famous. They had a craft, they had a skill, thanks to YouTube and the social media sort of evolution, they have all of a sudden reached this wide audience. But that doesn't mean that they're able to articulate what they want to say through words. Most of artists are very, very camera shy. Forget about camera shy, they're just shy in general, and they're not very expressive people. So I think it comes from that place. I think I'm shocked that I'm interviewing people born in 1999. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, to me, if somebody said to me, you know,
it's painful,
that,
isn't it? Sometimes
it is. I mean, they're actually, it's interesting. It's both. It depends on your experiences and how. I just interviewed the most beautiful old soul recently, Nirvair Pannu, and the conversation was just so beautiful. And this kid has so much depth and so much to say, and it hasn't come out. Any of the interviews that I would watch of his were 7 minutes long, 8 minutes long, 9 minutes long, and he seemed extremely shy and not being able to open up. And his best friend warned me that he doesn't talk much. I just want to let you know. And I was like, okay, we'll see. We'll go with the flow. Same thing happened with AP. The team, when I was doing the interviews for the documentary on Amazon, I was warned that AP doesn't talk much. He doesn't express much. And we spoke for an hour and a half, nonstop. Nirvair, I had to literally look at the clock and go, oh my gosh, Nirvair, we gotta go. We gotta wrap up.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. No, I'll take your points on, to be honest. I do, and I do see it from there. Sometimes you're just hoping that they've seen a body of work that to take that trust. Like, you're not, if you go out your way to make someone look stupid, it's never going to make it. You might get short-term pleasure out of it, but it's never going to kind of last from that bit. Right, I'm going to come to this bit now because I know exactly how busy you are. This is called the bandwagon. So I give a space to the guest. Where is there a bandwagon that they want to jump on? Is there a bandwagon that they want to jump off? Or is there anything that they want to get off their chest? This is their space to do so.
Oh, that's a tough one. I should have known about that before.
Oh, I never give anyone a pre-warning. It's just whatever they feel at that moment, then that's fine.
The bandwagon I want to get on is, how I always envy how I wouldn't say content creators. I was going to say influencers, but that's not the right term. Content creators are able to create content and put it out in a shameless manner, in a very organic manner, create reels, like that entire zone of being so comfortable. It takes me an hour and a half to say 30-second piece for my social media. Like, I really wish I was a little bit more comfortable in that aspect. You say, lights, camera, I will talk. But if you ask me to just take a phone and start talking to my audience, I have a really hard time. I wish I could learn that. That's a big one for me. I wish I could just sort of not worry so much and just be okay with being organic and not being so structured.
Yeah, I do think that it's I resonate exactly what you say. I think it has become cheap in some way, where people just get it and just throw it out there. Like, I do the same. I'm just consistent with the same stuff. Like, I do know that I have to change the colors of the background soon. I need to do other stuff. But my point is to say that the whole purpose is to have the person. You're not the star. The person is the person who
oh my gosh, that's a big one for me. That's a big one for me. That the entire conversation is not about you. It's about the person you're sitting across. For me, the biggest compliment is always, you brought the best out of them. And if it's the guest, for them to say, you made us feel comfortable. That's the biggest compliment.
Brilliant.
Sorry.
Well, got a cough out of you. That's great. I think that's a natural pause in it. But I really, and so the things out from when I've been, looked at your stuff, and I'm learning, and I think it's really important to have mentors and people who are, people are doing well, and actually telling people that they're doing well as well is really important, because I think that from an ego point of view, um is lacking. I think if we actually encourage other people, especially in this space, I think podcasters have a duty of not making podcasts like what the rest of the media is. It's a separate thing. Go on other people's podcast, support theirs, because not everyone can listen to one thing at a time. They've got a selection. Everybody's different. There's loads of space and loads of food for everybody out there. So I think, that's one thing that I think you're doing really, really well. And I encourage you to kind of keep that forward.
Thank you. There's not too many people that, especially, we don't encourage our peers enough, I find. We don't hear that from our counterparts, that you're doing great. And that's very rare. It takes a very secure person to say, hey, I'm a podcaster, so are you. You're doing amazing. And when you reached out, Ricky, I honestly was like, oh my goodness, that is so cool. Just because in the media, all you see is everybody's competing with you. I've been in those workplaces or workspaces where everyone sees you as a threat. Everyone sees you as, I have to compete with her. Like, I need to be, oh my gosh, she's a threat. I'm going to push her under the bus. Like, all of those experiences leave you feeling really, I don't want to say cynical because I'm too much of an optimist. But it does sort of make you feel like, okay, who do you trust? So then you climb up and you just go in your own shell and you just keep doing your thing. So it means a lot that you have people like Jazzy B on your podcast, and now you're having me. So that's a big deal. I should tell that to Jazzy.
I did bump into last couple of weeks ago, and so me and my son are super fans. Right, my son is as well, and I was just like looking at it for about half an hour. What? Just talking over, and I was like, I've got to stop this. Oh my gosh. I think the only reason him and I are really, really great friends is because I'm clueless about his music. I know Dil Lutya, and that's my song, and that's my my
jam, and
God.
that's the
I need to get when you come when you come over, I'll do classes and just go through his whole portfolio, and then
his contribution to the music is just something else. That's something that and that's another thing with Chai with Tea I think I've tried to do, is because we already have so much of content where they're talking about their music and their product and their journey. Mine is always personal. So I sometimes in my interview, sometimes I feel like, oh my gosh, I didn't even touch on the craft and the music aspect, but I feel like there's so many people already doing that. So mine is more like, no, let's talk about the person, Jazzy B. So I've done a really cool interview with him. I hope you like it as a fan, especially.
I will. I'm checking. Don't you worry. If there's any problems, I'm texting you straight away and saying, hang on a second. Okay, Tarannum, I really appreciate you taking time out today, and I can't wait to do this again when you're on the next sort of ceiling and breaking through that. And I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Honestly, thank you so much for having me. Thank you.